Good afternoon and welcome to Assembly Budget Subcommittee number 4, State Administration's hearing on Thursday, May 19. We have several vote-only items and we're going to take that up once the committee members are here. For now, what I'd like to do, though, is remove issue number 8 from the agenda, part 1 in the vote-only calendar, and that's the Administrative Support Services, and move it to Monday's hearing. There are 11 remaining items, but I believe of that, Mr. Mullen wanted to remove issue item 11, the Cal Access Replacement Project, from the vote-only file as well, and ask for it to be moved to the Monday hearing. So with those two items removed, we'll take a vote when the members are here. And now we'll start as subcommittee. And if we can have the Department of Veterans Affairs join us for the CalTAP program. Good afternoon.
Good morning. I'm Keith Boylan, Deputy Secretary for the California Department of Veterans Affairs Veterans Service Division. We are here this morning to speak to the proposal to develop a CalTAP program. The program would appropriate $813,000 and fill 7 positions. They would be responsible for developing the CalTAP program and providing additional training and education opportunities in 15 different regions throughout the state.
Okay. Is that the end of the presentation?
Oh, no, I just didn't know if you wanted to give you an opportunity.
No, please go on.
So basically the program, there's an existing transition GPS program that's developed by the federal government. Folks have been critical over regarding its efficacy for years. This would provide California the first opportunity nationwide to develop a veteran-specific statewide transition program. This program would not only reinforce and supplement much of the material that's provided during the Transition GPS program, but additionally it will expand the training opportunities into a variety of subject areas that are certainly not touched during that program. Additionally, it would provide veterans the opportunity to take part in this program from day one of returning to California up till at any point in their life. And as we know, over time, veterans' needs change as well as the benefits and services that are available to them through their service, whether that's because they get married, have children, and change jobs, whatever the case may be. So we're very excited about this program. The biggest key to this program is that the federal agencies will certainly be involved in the state and county as well, but more so, it'll be a program that's specifically designed and includes the community-based system of care, which is really vital to appropriately assist in the transition of veterans back into the community in a healthy way. Currently, the Transition GPS program, for instance, if a veteran is exiting the military in Georgia, returning to California, while they're in the transition program in Georgia, they may, if they're lucky, learn a little bit about the lay of the land in Georgia as it relates to community-based services and so forth. However, as soon as they exit, they get on a plane, come back to California, and are kind of isolated in that respect. So we're very excited about the opportunity to give them this additional education and opportunities in the community which they live and connect them to those community resources as well.
And does that start while they're in Georgia?
It does not.
Or okay,
so this would be yes, sir. This would be a veteran specific. So the Transition GPS program, the initial program was developed in the 1990s. It was Transition Assistance Program. They revamped it 2 years ago. The initial program was not mandatory. It was kind of hit and miss what you would learn at different locations. It was not consistent throughout the armed services, nor within a certain branch from base to base. So there's a variety of information that was delivered. Primarily, it was focused on DOL, Department of Labor efforts, focused on employment. There was a 3-day part that focused very heavily on employment. The 4th day, the VA would come in and give a quick snapshot of what benefits are available. And as I said, the benefits available to you as a 22-year-old single, no children, are very different than that of a 45-year-old who's now married and has children, maybe college age and so forth. It didn't cover any of the state-specific benefits. It didn't cover any of the mental health, education, I mean a myriad of other issues that certainly need to be addressed that lead to some larger challenges down the road. But the program overall was, like I said, it was when they transitioned to the Transition GPS program, the idea behind it was to keep the Department of Labor aspect of it and focus heavily on employment, and allow veterans or allow active military in their last 12 months to really pick a path, whether it be entrepreneurial, going the education route, or in various employment avenues, and provide them the opportunity while they're in to still kind of plan for that exit.
So let me stop you for a
Sure.
second. What I'm interested also to know is if there are other states with similar programs that you've accumulated best practices that you can speak to. But before you do that, before you respond, I'd like to set quorum and take up the vote-only item calendar.
Mr. Nazarian?
Present.
Allen Cooper?
Present.
Mullen?
Present.
Wilk. Quorum is present.
Great. So vote-only items from both agenda Part 1 and Part 2, with the exception of issue number 8. And Mr. Mullen, I think you had some comments on issue number 11.
Mr. Chair, just moving that we move the Cal Access item over to Monday, and I'll make some comments on the item on Monday if I might. But with that exception, I would move the remaining items on the vote-only calendar.
Great. Thank you.
So this is to approve the items on the vote-only calendar. Mr. Nazarian?
On both agenda Part 1 and Part 2.
Yes, on Part 1 and 2. Mr. Nazarian?
Aye.
Allen Cooper?
Aye.
Mullen?
Aye.
Wilk. Okay,
Great.
those pass.
Okay. So if you want to take
Sure.
a minute and respond to that, and we can move on to the next item.
Sure. So to answer your question, no other states at the last state directors conference in Florida, and then the following one in D.C. I spoke to many of the state directors throughout the country, and brought up this issue and brought up our ideas and the concept of this, and trying to get some feedback. The reality of it is California is way ahead of the curve in terms of proactively looking at the transition issue. Many states are simply just in the infancy stages of starting to begin the concept of collaboratives and so forth, which California is well past that. Part of that was due to the governor's interagency council. That was a process that we engaged in, that we paid close attention to, and worked with the community service providers in that. And since then, to understand what they're doing in the community and how they could fold into such a project. Last month, Secretary Bassiani had leaders from the federal, state, and the community-based organizations up here in Sacramento for 3 days to discuss this initiative, or this concept, I should say, in terms of the way we can all come together as a state to provide a transition program. Obviously, not specific to what we're talking about here today, but just the concept of how we can harness all of our collective efforts to provide a transition assistance or bridge all the gaps in the transition process. So like I said, we've worked very closely with the partners throughout the state. However, we would be the first in the country to develop such a program.
Okay. LAO? Finance? Great. Any public comment on this? This item is going to be held open, and we will vote on it on Monday.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much. I'm going to remove 2 items out of sequence. Okay. All right. We're just going to move on then to the next item. Secretary of State, issue number 2, voter information guide.
Afternoon. James Schwab with the Secretary of State's office. Secretary of State is requesting an additional $10 million from the general fund for preparing, printing, and mailing the statewide voter information guide and a possible supplemental guide for late legislative measures. The appropriation is needed to address the increase in costs related to the voter information guide due to the unusually high amount of measures that will likely qualify for the 2016 ballot. The amount of measures could push the number of pages of the guide to over 200 pages. And at that point, the Office of State Publishing advises us that we have to break the guide into 2 volumes, increasing printing and mailing costs. Our estimates are based on a 208-page guide. The exact size of the guide is based on several factors, many of which are currently unknown. The number of qualified measures, which we won't know until June 30th, the length of arguments in support and opposition, and the rebuttals, and the length of the LEO analysis for each measure. Additionally, voter registration continues to surge. If this surge continues through the fall, we will also be mailing out just more guides in general. And I'm here to answer any questions.
LEO, Finance, any public comments? Questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I should really know the answer to this question because we have a system in San Mateo County for electronic voter guides. Is the state considering anything along those lines, which obviously would be an opt-in for the voter, but would have the potential, especially those voters who registered online, to receive their state voter guide online? Consideration of that?
Correct. Many counties offer the option to opt out of receiving the paper local guide. Once VOCAL is live, it will be a function of VOCAL to opt out of receiving the paper statewide voter information guide, which obviously would produce some long-term cost savings.
Excellent. Thank you.
And the quick question I just have is, I think there was some changes made to the amount requested to the proposal in the Senate subcommittee, so if you can speak to that.
Correct. I believe the Senate took out $2.7 million, which is roughly our estimate for a supplemental guide. And a supplemental guide comes into use if the legislature passes late measures in August. In 2014, we had a late guide, and that was a little over $2 million. And so we were anticipating that there might be another late measure this year, and there might be another need for another supplemental guide. But the Senate took that funds out, $2.7 million, I believe. Yeah. They will be, yeah. As we speak, probably.
So could the Secretary of State utilize other forms or mechanisms to request additional funding for the supplemental? Correct.
In the past, when late measures are placed on the ballot, the legislature generally appropriates funds at that time. So if a measure is put on the ballot in August by the legislature, they could appropriate the funding for a supplemental guide at that time.
Okay. Any other questions? This item's going to be held open and voted on Monday. Voted upon on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item. Department of Consumer Affairs. First, we have the Board of Behavioral Sciences examination vendor contract. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Alrighty, I'm Kim Matson. I'm the Executive Officer for the Board of Behavioral Sciences, and good afternoon, Assemblyman, Member Nazarian, and committee members. The Board is requesting $1.5 million to increase its existing examination vendor contract from $359,000 to $1.8 million. This request will ensure the Board has sufficient expenditure authority to accommodate a projected 61,000 initial and re-exam applicants for the California Law and Ethics examination. This new examination process requires all board registrants to take the law and ethics examination within the first year of registering with the board and allows an unsuccessful candidate to retest every 90 days. And I want to clarify, our request simply seeks expenditure authority since the candidate pays for the examination at the time the application is submitted. The board does have an adequate fund reserve to support this request. At this time, I'd like to thank the committee for its approval of the positions requested for the board's licensing and examination unit. Together, this proposal and the previous proposal approved ensure that the board has the resources necessary to continue its examination and licensure process. I'm here to answer any questions you might have and respectfully request your approval of our request.
Thank you. Any other comments? LAO?
No comments.
Finance?
We support the administration proposal. Thanks.
Okay. Any public comments? Any questions from the committee? Great. Thank you so much. We'll be voting. This item will be held open and will be voted upon on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the Board of Optometry Registered Dispensing Opticians trailer bill language. I'm hoping all the issues have been resolved.
I hope so too. So the original trailer bill language, it removes the ability for respondents to redact information on the lease prior to submitting to the board. It adds stronger enforcement mechanisms via citations up to $50,000 for noncompliance. And it requires the parties to comply with milestones and not just report the milestones. The newest proposal was from the administration, and it clarifies that the RDO member, it extends to the non-resident contact lens dispensers and the spectacle lens dispensers. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on this and the back and forth. LAO?
Helen Kirstein, LAO. We have no comments.
Finance?
Jeff Wiener, Department of Finance. We support the proposal as is.
Okay. And any comments from the public? Members? This item is also going to be held open and will be voted upon on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go out of sequence since some of the folks from the Bureau of Medical Marijuana are making a presentation on the Senate side. So we will go on to the control section, issue item 7.
Sure, you can stay.
This is the last item on the first part of the agenda. If only it was going this smoothly yesterday. Welcome.
Hi, Ted Ryan, Department of Finance. Would you like me to present the item?
Please.
So the control section was devised as basically an emergency funding mechanism should there be unanticipated costs in the budget year for medical marijuana projects related to, or IT projects related to medical marijuana regulation. We are not intending on using this control section because we believe that for the projects that have already been identified and planned for, enough money has been budgeted for those proposals. But this would give us a sort of an emergency mechanism to provide additional funding should projects fall behind or lose track of their timeline and be unable to meet that January 2018 deadline.
Okay. Any comments from LAO or Finance?
Helen Kirstein with the Legislative Analyst's Office. We do recognize the need to move forward expeditiously with these projects given the January 2018 deadline. However, we've raised some concerns that we think that there's not a sufficient information that's provided as part of this control section. So we proposed some changes to the language, which are outlined in the handout that I believe the sergeants passed out. And they just require that the administration provide some basic information on the projects in terms of cost, timeline, contract information when requesting these augmentations. We think this is important information for the Joint Legislative Budget Committee to have when they're reviewing these augmentations mid-year.
Okay. Finance?
And we would we'll work with the LAO to adopt that and to insert that language.
Sure. This item will also be held open. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on to part 2 of the agenda, EDD, California Workforce Investment Board. Oh, they are. It's a pretty busy day. So I believe that is being heard in sub 5 right now. So moving on to the next item, is the Department of Industrial Relations available? Part of, okay. Secretary of, State Controller's Office? Welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon, Chairman and members. My name is Tom Yowell, Chief Administrative Officer with the State Controller's Office. Our request is for $2,720,000 to support 8 positions to complete the assessments identified by the LAO and to perform business process reengineering of our human resource management and payroll processing practices. After the project's suspension, a need for several project assessments was recognized and a comprehensive approach to satisfy all stakeholders' concerns was created. 3 separate assessments focusing on key objectives that are required to develop a strategic plan to move the project forward were identified. The first assessment has been completed. And through a 16-17 BCP, 8 positions were authorized for half a year. This request seeks to continue those positions for the balance of 16-17 through fiscal year 2018-19. Upon obtaining a settlement or finalizing the litigation, the project will be terminated. Staff will complete the remaining 2 assessments as closeout activities and then begin the business process reengineering. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Elio?
Ryan Miller from the Legislative Analyst's Office. We've issued 2 recommendations on this proposal. First, we would note that the 21st Century Project has long been authorized on a 1-year-at-a-time basis. And we're concerned that authorizing 3 years will limit the legislature's ability to sort of shape future assessment activities. And so we would recommend that the legislature approve this proposal on a 1-year basis, and we've suggested a supplemental reporting language that would have the Controller's Office report to the legislature on what alternatives will be considered as they move forward to restart the efforts to replace the payroll system. In addition, while we did recommend a few years ago that the project go through a multiple assessment process, and we still think that 2 of the 3 remaining assessments are worthwhile. We feel that because of the time that's passed and staff turnover, essentially no staff is remaining at the project, we're concerned that the project management assessment proposed for 2016-17 would not be very worthwhile, and so we recommend eliminating that assessment and reducing the request by $343,000.
Okay. Finance?
We have no specific comments on the LAO's recommendation, and we do approve and recommend approval of the request as submitted, but we are committed to be able to work with the committee and the department based on whatever the outcome of this specific hearing is.
Okay. Any public comments?
I'd like to, if I may, just briefly comment about the 1-year funding versus 3-year. The amount of funding that we're requesting is just for a baseline kind of the administration and management of the project. We would not be able to go forward with any kind of plan without coming back to the legislature. And so we want to allay any fears that 3-year funding is going to allow us to start implementing any system. We would definitely be coming back with alternatives and get your approval before seeking that. In the Senate, they did recognize that and are planning to approve us for the 3-year funding. But as for the requirements for that project assessment, we do concur that removing that assessment would be worthwhile.
Oh, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the troubled nature of the 21st Century Project, I'd be supportive of the 1-year funding. My question is, I understand there was an independent assessment completed by Department of Technology this past December on the project, sort of where things stand with the payroll implementation. Is the Controller's Office proposing an additional assessment on top of the previously completed assessment, or can you just explain that to me?
Sure. It's a different focus. The original project assessment that was already completed was on what did we get for the money that we spent, and what would it take in cost and effort to complete that project. That was the scope, the limited scope of that assessment. The assessment that was proposed for this one is to look back at the project management. And again, the LEO actually originally 3 years ago requested that before we go forward, we should look at the project management, ensure that that wasn't a cause for the project's failure. But they also recognize, too, that, as staffing disappears over time, it becomes less and less valuable. For those reasons, we agree with the shift in that requirement. But there's one other entity that required it, was California Department of Technology. And upon their suspension of the project, they also required that assessment be done. We've since spoken to them, and they're willing to also release that as a requirement for moving forward.
And I know it's beyond the scope of the conversation today. I'm just curious if anybody at the table knows, in general terms, what the status of the litigation is with SAP on this project. Is that in court? Is that happening right now? What's our timeline on some determination? Where are we on that?
We're actually very, very close. May 23rd. Next Tuesday is the court date, and everything is supposed to be completed within 6 to 8 weeks for that trial. Yeah.
So given this, we can take action right now and adopt the first year of funding and allow it to be part of the conference committee. Mm-hmm. And that'll also give a little bit more time to see what some of the results are from, I guess, Tuesday's action as well. So with that, is there a motion to adopt the first year of funding and the supplemental report language?
So moved. Second.
Nazarian?
Aye.
Allen?
Aye.
Cooper?
Aye.
Mullen?
Aye.
Wilk? Measure passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Sure, we can do that. The next item is going to be the Board of Equalization, but as you're taking your time coming up, we'll open the roll for some of the votes for Mr. Allen. Okay. Mr. Allen, we have two agendas, Part 1 and Part 2. So this is going to be the vote-only calendar for both of the agendas. From them, we've removed from Agenda Part 1, we've removed issue number 8 and issue number 11. to be heard and voted upon on Monday. So with that, let's open the roll.
So this is for the remainder of the vote-only items. Allen? Aye. Wilk? Okay.
Okay. Issues number 1 through 4 were all heard and kept open. Now on to Secretary of Board of Equalization.
Good afternoon. I'm Etna Murphy, the Admin Deputy for the Board of Equalization.
I'm Suzanne Bueller, Deputy Director for Business Tax and Fee Department at the Board of Equalization.
The Board of Equalization is requesting $1.3 million in special funds and 3.7 positions in fiscal year 16-17 and $188,000 and 2.3 positions in 17-18 and ongoing for the BOE to continue to process mandated workload associated with AB 1717. AB 1717 enacted the Prepaid Mobile Telephony Service Surcharge Collection and the Local Prepaid Mobile Telephony Service Collection Act, which imposed upon each prepaid consumer a prepaid MTS surcharge and local charge to be collected by a seller on each retail transaction involving prepaid mobile telephony services. The legislation went into effect on January 1, 2016. In your agenda, you requested that BOE provides justification for the additional staff. Due to the uncertainty of the number of MTS registrants, the BOE and the Department of Finance determined the initial request would be conservative, with the understanding that BOE would follow up with a spring finance letter when the actual registrants were known. Audit resources are generally not requested in the first year, as it is more productive to do audits that cover multiple years at once. Additionally, due to the time constraint for implementation, certain functionality in our system could not be built, and we are requesting resources to build it now to avoid unnecessary manual workarounds. The MTS program is subject to the normal turnover of any other program, and currently we have 6 vacancies. 2 positions are actively in recruitment, 2 are expiring on June 30th. They were limited term, and 1 that is held for a leave of absence, and the last we are preparing to recruit as we speak. I would like to also note that MTS program is projecting $668,000 saving in this fiscal year, primarily due to savings for contracting services. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Elio? No comment. And I'm not sure if it's finance?
No additional comment.
Okay. All right, any public comments on this? Any questions from the members? We will be holding this item open, and we will take it up on either Monday or Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think at this point we're still waiting for EDD as well as industrial relations and Bureau of Medical Marijuana from DCA. So why don't we just take a quick recess until they are here. Thank you. take up the two items of DCA having to do with the Bureau of Medical Marijuana, as well as the EDD and industrial relations issues up on Monday. And we'll just roll it over. So thank you so much, and we'll see all of you on Monday. Oh, meeting adjourned.